Hi everybody, I'm Belle Holder, the host of UNCTAD Conversations. Today we are at the Exchange Museum, which is located in the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Historic Bridgetown and its garrisons. This room is a recreation of a historic classroom setting. And you know, education is truly not a commodity, but a human right for everyone. Throughout the series, we've had the opportunity to sit down with those high-level individuals who are charged with the responsibility of effecting policy and making positive changes for every Barbadian. Those Barbadians who need us to fight and advocate for them the most are our children and our young people. Today's guest is the Minister of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. Today, we sit down with the Honorable Dwight Sutherland. When we talk about young people in Barbados, so we're talking ages 10 to 24 is sort of the age range that we're referring to when we say, but I include children too, 0 to 24 for me. And I really cannot say and emphasize enough that young people really are the conduit to a better, brighter future in Barbados. So I'm going to start with a personal question. And as a father, when you took over this ministry, what is the most important thing for you when it comes to young people that you want to focus on?
When I took over the ministry, I think that was a year ago in July 2020. And being a father, my focus was on creating opportunities for all young people and not leaving anyone behind. Making Barbados the best place for young people to gain an education, work, raise a family, and do business. Critical for me in the ministry, if we are really focusing on sustainable development, and we are as a government, we have to ensure that we position Barbados to be punching above its weight, in the words of Kofi Annan, for 40, 50 years down the road. We cannot position Barbados for the next 10 years. So that's why the focus on young people is of paramount importance as we develop and as we seek to create global citizens among our people.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned education. I know there's a lot of overlap within the ministries, but if we're going to talk about young people, we certainly have to talk about education. And I've said this repeatedly, that education has always been, created a level playing field in Barbados because of access. And we can never view education as a commodity. It has to be a human right for access for everybody. I think with the advent of the COVID pandemic, we've obviously seen some issues that we never even thought about before. Our children going to school online, needing Wi-Fi and online devices and access. But there's something that actually came to my mind that I'll be honest about this, that I didn't even consider before. One, like the school meals program, for example, meant that there are some children who are so vulnerable that that's a guaranteed 5 days a week meal for some of these children. And so with online schooling, where they're in the home environment every single day, how do we address those children who are vulnerable in that way, where necessarily we have to make sure that they get the necessary nutrition that they need?
That's a fully loaded question, and it's a very important one, because if you recall, and let me just say, COVID-19 and its mitigating measures have changed how we view work and how we view jobs. Technology has indeed taken over, and if there is no better time now that we can see the value of technology, it's now during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mental health has also stepped in a major way. That's why we partner with the Sandy Lane Trust, and we provided meals. You recall how the BDF went around Barbados to ensure that families, vulnerable families, disadvantaged families, those who don't earn a living got meals. Even those who earn a living, because you will find that things became so tough as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We may look at someone who lives in a middle class area, in a bungalow, you know, a 2-story house, and they have lost their job. But we will look and say, that's a big house. Some of us will look and say, oh, that's a big house, let's bypass that house. But you don't realize too that within that house, so we have young ones, mother not working, father not working, maybe a single parent home who earned a living over the years and became challenged as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We tried our best as a government to ensure that every single person, from the vulnerable, the middle class, who needed the meals, got meals. And you mentioned the value of school meals. And we see school meals not just providing meals, but nutrition value so that the young people can learn. Because if you don't eat right, you will not learn. Contrary to popular belief, nutrition is very critical to education. So we try to ensure that every single family had meals on their table. Well, I can tell you one of my challenges. We have to try not to leave out anyone, because very often when you engage in mass programs like these, you know, when there's one person who's left out, then you hear that one person crying. But we understand why they cry, why they shout, you know, why they scream for help, because these are very difficult times. And I understand that we as a government must provide, there's a social element to whatever we do. Yes, economic as well, there's social, there's environmental, and we must make sure that all these social issues through the welfare department, we were able to go to families, the Ministry of People's Empowerment. I must compliment Minister Ford and her team, who were out there daily to ensure that no one was left behind and that everyone had meals and everyone had a little substance, whether it is through the dollar value or through meals being provided to them.
Yeah. So for you then, because when you look youth, sports, and community empowerment, and so what is your main focus? When you wake up in the morning and you say, okay, the young people of Barbados, that's my responsibility. What's the thing that you're most focused on today?
Yeah, we came to office, like I said, to build a stable and cohesive society, and through the full involvement and empowerment of young people as we seek to develop socially and economically. My focus is to provide opportunities, employment opportunities, learning opportunities, especially for the vulnerable. So we have some 4,000 school leavers every year. Barbados has around 60,000 young people. If we categorize them in that category, I go as high as 30, 35 because that's still youth. And
you go as high as 35?
Well, here, yeah,
right.
When I focus, but some of our programs cater to between, and I will get into the Get Heard and the Pathways, which cater to 16 to 25. But some of our programs, including the information technology, we go from 15 up to 45. That's giving everyone skills. But we say in Barbados, even though the ILO look at the young people within that category, 16 to 25, we still believe that we cannot leave out that 25 to 35 age group. When you look at the prison enrollment, those persons who are incarcerated, you will see what I'm saying, because it's not just the 16 to 25, but that age group 25 to 35 is also vulnerable. So we try to create programs for that grouping as well. So we try to leave no one behind. That's why we have the Barbados Youth Advanced Score, and I will get into some of the pathways and get into Get Hired.
Jamaica has recently done something really interesting. They have made sixth form mandatory for secondary school children. And the reason they've done that is because they saw those who were coming out of school too early at 15 and 16 were really not equipped, whether educationally, emotionally, certainly wouldn't have any experience to really tackle the job sector. So they would end up often being on blocks, or just ended up doing something negative. And Jamaica has made sixth form mandatory so that you will be within the school setting until a minimum of 18 years old. What's your response to that, and maybe looking at something like that for Barbados?
Okay. All right. It's a good initiative, I would say. It's transformational. We're there too are looking not to leave anyone behind. But within our system, though, if I can speak to Barbados and what we have done, sixth form is based on performance-based. And you gain entry into sixth form based on a requisite number of O levels. But even if you leave school at age 15, 16, we came to office, we had the Barbados Youth Service, which was formed back in 1991. And the Barbados Youth Service took 80 young men and women between the age group of 16 to 20. We came to office in 2018, and our view was to leave no one behind, to give all young people a second chance. So even if you didn't make it into fifth form or sixth form, you had the opportunity now to join the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps. And we created the environment where these young people can be trained, counseled, do psychosocial assessments and evaluation. But more importantly, we have a 3-month residential camp where we teach them civic education, self-esteem, discipline, decision making, and psychosocial evaluation. So even though you don't make it into sixth form, you still have a second chance through the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps.
Right.
Since 2018, we have enrolled some 500 young people. Despite COVID, young persons between the ages of 16 and 20 through the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps. And we've seen a number of persons being employed, up to 100 persons out of that enrollment gain full employment within the private sector, within government.
Right.
And they also had a chance at completing O levels, enrolling into BIMAC, Samuel Jetman Prescott Institution, Community College. And we have numbers who sat the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate exam. As much as 80 out of those young persons who came out of secondary school without any certification. So while Jamaica is making sixth form mandatory, we have created the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps, which would give you and capture those persons, not because you don't have 2 O levels, you can't get entry into the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps. Actually, it was formed for that reason.
Right.
Persons who leave school at the O levels can gain entry into the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps. And my final point there, even if you have O levels there as well, and you see the need for civic education, you see the need for discipline. We have someone from an older secondary school who joined the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps, and that person had O levels, but they wanted that global knowledge, how to become a global citizen through civic education, citizenry, discipline. So they came to the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, because I know that's something that's still near and dear to your heart. We'll be right back with more on UNCTAD Conversations. We're continuing our conversation now with Minister of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, the Honorable Dwight Sutherland. I know that you were responsible for entrepreneurship before that, but I don't think it's something you can just switch off. So I know it's still very near and dear to your heart, and I'm sure that you brought some of that into now looking at young people in Barbados. And I think it would be remiss of us to not talk about young people on the blocks. And whenever we talk about young people, people are always concerned about those who, for lack of a better term, wayward, and those are the ones that we need to hold on to the hardest and the strongest. What have you looked at in terms of getting young people off the blocks, where it's perceived as a negative?
Okay, thank you, Belle. Let me go back to when I came to office in 2018, and I was entrusted the task of building the small business sector and pushing entrepreneurship. We started the Trust Loans Division. We have Fund Access, which is a reputable entity functioning, but we wanted to give our young people and small businesses seed capital. That's why the Trust Loan was formed. And between 2018 and 2000, and 2020, we were able to start over 4,500 small businesses. Now let's transfer that now to youth. We have within the Ministry of Youth, the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, that provide guidance, counseling, and also financial support for small businesses. But the Blockpreneurship program was a community-based intervention strategy aimed at reducing unemployment and also solving some of our social ills on the block, if we want to talk about some of the crime and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So we sought to turn the block into productive assets. And people often frown upon blocks. Well, some of them, and I often say this within the country, I live next door to a block, and that block was educational for me, edifying for me. So we saw the need to transform the blocks into productive assets and turn some of these young people who had no gainful employment to give them businesses. And we started the block project where we not only build kiosks, and thus far we have built some 18 within.
Can you speak specifically to where those are located?
Yes. Silver Hill in Christchurch, Parkinson Field in the Pine, Bonnets in the Bonnets in Brittonsill area, and also the Ivy. And we have empowered some 18 entrepreneurs, 18 small businesses. We didn't only build the kiosk, but we provided the necessary training, and we partnered with the trust loan to make sure they had the seed capital. Right. So when you go to Silver Hill on these blocks, you'll see transformation. You'll see young men.
What are some of the businesses that came to the fore?
Some of the businesses, beauty salon, barbering, what we call cooking, preparation of meals on a daily basis. Persons doing, you can speak of everything, tailoring. So some of these businesses within these blocks, wholesaling fruit and vegetable. Some persons plant their own food now and sell on the blocks. We saw some healthy lifestyle juices, natural juices. So there are several businesses that were formed. Recently we did a tour. We're now at this stage of waiting for Tongue and Country Planning's approval for a block in Bush Hall, one in Brittonsill. We're also looking at Blackrock, St. Stephen's Hill. We're looking at Sears Court in Christchurch. We're looking at Lamins in St. Joseph. And of course, we're looking at Ellerton in St. George. We're looking at St. Lucie, Checker Hall in St. Lucie. So we'll be developing businesses on these blocks where young people have the opportunity now to earn a living and to be their own businessman and businesswoman. But critical, we are moving them from the informal sector where they're not recognized to the formal sector where the banks and the credit union can now recognize them as formal business people. They will pay their income taxes, and that's how you recognize the growth of small businesses. So we saw the need to enhance the small business sector to allow growth within the domestic environment, because tourism, as you can see, tourism took a hit, but we believe that if we have a buoyant small business sector, we'll do just as good as New York.
Yeah. So with this Building Blocks pilot program, have you looked at a sort of a paying it forward system or some sort of mentorship and training for other young people who may be attracted to the blocks as well, coming along behind these initial businesses that you were able to start?
Yes. What we have engaged in within the ministry is peer-to-peer mentorship and also counseling. So when you go on a block, we didn't leave the persons who have the kiosks, but we looked at the surrounding environment, those persons who are not able to have their business there and then, but we still enroll them in some of the key programs that we have, like the Get Into, Get Her, the Pathways, First Step Training Initiative. So we go on blocks. Yes, we empower persons within the blocks, but we also transform community in a holistic way so that every single person have an opportunity to earn a living, do business, and to make Barbados the best place for young people to do business work. And as we say, enjoy life.
Yeah. I know there are several other programs that you've been working on to bring on stream. So it wasn't just the Building Blocks pilot program, but there were some other initiatives as well in terms of computer technology, et cetera, that you brought on stream.
Yes, the computer technology program, I think, is probably one of the most important programs. As a result of COVID, there is no greater need now than the need to engage in information technology training. We have trained over the years In 2018, the information technology, what we call the CTP, Computer Technology Program, trained some 1,300 individuals. In 2019, we trained 2,000 individuals. COVID came upon us, and in 2020, we trained 5,000 via online training in the area of computer repairs, animation, cell phone repairs, computer technology, software application. And we were able to take our program as far as North Africa, South Sudan, where we had 3 persons from South Sudan being part of that program. So that is a fundamental program.
So this is online that they were able to.
This is online. We were able to, as a result of COVID, we couldn't meet at our community centers, but we were able to utilize the technology to train 5,000 persons in 2020.
Mm-hmm. So how do you then, because what we don't want is people to become frustrated. So I've got this new training, and then of course the employment needs to follow on. So we're going to continue this conversation right after the break. We'll be right back. We continue our conversation now with the Minister of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. Before the break, we were talking about the number of young people who were able to train in terms of computer programming. One of the things I mentioned is it's difficult, especially now. We know that with the advent of COVID, there's a fair amount of unemployment. And when you're going to start rehiring, you're going to hire older adults who have would have more responsibility ahead of young people who are now coming into the workforce. So my question was, how are you making sure then that we move from that level of training to finding positions for these individuals so they don't end up frustrated?
Yes, thank you. Very good question. And we know frustration has stepped in, mental health challenges have stepped in. But we have within our arsenal at the Ministry of Youth, we have a program by the name of Pathways and Get Hired. And what we do is create the environment to make our young people employable. Some of these young persons, they may have the computer technology training, but they're not employable in terms of, they haven't had work experience. So we have created a program by the name of Pathways, and it's a 2-month job attachment program, where we spend the first month, we give you more personal development training. Then we put you on a job attachment with companies. We have partnered with job seekers and private sector entities, and also public sector entities, whereby we have provided, I would say, within the last 2 to 3 years, employment opportunities for close to 300 young Barbadians. So the pathway is a way. Then we have Get Hired, which is part of the Pathway project, where you have an intense 2-day workshop. First day, you're spoken to by employers with respect to decision making and what they want in a young employee, in terms of being a team member, being able to operate in a team environment, being able to make decisions, displaying leadership skills, and that's day 1. And they do psychosocial evaluation as well. And on day 2, at the end of day 1, you are given what they call a job sheet to fill out, a job application to fill out. And on day 2, you sit down with your employer, and your employer interview you. And what that does is it begin to make the young persons within the computer technology program who have done the next step training initiatives employable, because they speak to the employers, and the employers speak to them to let them know what they need to do.
So it's practical training. It's practical.
It is on hand practical training, and it has been working. So the Pathways, I think, is an employability program where we look at the private sector entities come in and do necessary training with the young people. Those persons, some of them have not had any job experience. But at the end of the 2-month workshop and the job attachment apprenticeship program that we engage in with the private sector, we see a number of young persons then going on to be hired within the public sector and also within the private sector.
One of the things that young people talk about is they'll often tell you the people who are in these decision-making positions sometimes don't talk to us first. Like, decisions get made for young people and then it's brought to us. What are the young people themselves telling you? And I know it might be a little bit more difficult now to get physically out into the community because we're dealing with a health issue. But have you had the opportunity to interface recently? Like, what are they saying? What are they saying are their strongest needs?
Yeah. Let me just say, though, at the outset, that we believe that the young people have the creativity and the energy to take Barbados forward, to prepare Barbados for 50 years down the road, to punch above its weight. I believe the young people have that creativity and the energy to transform Barbados. Young people are saying that they're not getting the opportunity to be part of decision making, and it's true. On what we're doing within the ministry and within government, we saw it fit to have within our boards, when we created boards, hundreds of boards, we saw it fit to place at least one young person on the board so they can, be au fait with decision making, governance. So we are doing our part. We have also engaged in leadership training within the ministry. Every year we train at least 100 young men and women to be leaders and to make decisions. So we have to increase the scale, and we have to create real life opportunities for these young people. And that is the cry. If there are two things young people say to me, they're not involved in decision making, and we're trying to resolve that by having as much of them place on boards and as much of them place in key positions, where we as a ministry listen to them and create policies. The Youth Policy Committee just did a virtual session where the young people were able to tell the country what they need from the ministry or the youth. What are some of the policies and some of the strategies that we should employ to ensure the final point, employability, and to give them the opportunity to earn a living. Job opportunities are indeed lacking among the young people. So decision making and jobs. But I want to end by saying the time has come for Barbados to move from a labor market force to a design market force, where innovation takes over. Yes, we're going to have the Barbados Youth Advanced Score. We're going to have the Getting to Get Heard. We're leaving no one behind. But in order for us to truly transform, we need to create some young millionaires. We need to design, we need to be innovative, and we need to transform our country at a different level. So that's the next thrust, where the Ministry of Industry is working with the Prime Minister's office and also within the Ministry of Youth to create that design environment where the economy and where technology and where most of the renewable energy frontiers we push to create job opportunities that might not be here in Barbados but will be overseas. And that is where our focus is now as a government, to create opportunities not only in Barbados, and we will continue to create opportunities in Barbados, but we have to look beyond these shores, because we have over 60,000 young men and women in this country who are waiting and who need the opportunity to become something creative, some person who owns their own business, some innovator, some millionaire in the world. So that is where we are, to move Barbados from a solely labor market force to a design market where innovation takes over.
Right. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to sit down with us. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching this UNCTAD conversation. I know both you and I are certainly looking forward to meeting some of those future Barbadian millionaires. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.